Yay! It's kind of fun to do. Anyway, this is going to be Thursday, January 11th. So we're going to finish out our Fable notes, get to reading our first Fables. So the coat drive continues. Make sure your book report book chosen by tomorrow. Charger Challenge is coming up in a week from today. This is my current list. I have 14 kids on there. If you're watching this from home, you're probably out of luck because you're not going to get a chance to take that 15th spot. So if you're one of these kids, make sure you're good to go. Once again, we have the book report coming up. Checkpoints for the regular class. There's the ones for the advanced class. And then once again, checkpoint, first one for next week. My regular kids is going to be 1 square. For the advancing kids, it's going to be 2 squares. We do begin our first speech coming up on Tuesday. I will tell you what you're doing for your first speech, most likely on Tuesday. Maybe I'll tell you tomorrow after the quiz if we have time, but it depends on how class is going. If not, then I'm going to explain to you what your speech is the same day you're going to give it, because my goal is for you not to plan this speech out ahead of time. You're not going to write it. It's just going to be you getting a chance to stand up and talk and entertaining me. Those of you who are playing the home game, we're going to do a quick review of the things from the last 2 days to make sure the stuff is in your brain so we can help you out from there. Owen, thanks for volunteering for our first one. How many different types of fables exist? 3. Nicely done. Maya, the one that's been around the longest forever and ever is?
Traditional.
Go use the traditional type of fable. Luck Cup, we got to verse, and how is a verse fable written that makes it different than the others?
Like a poem.
Like a poem. And then we got to modern daughtery, and how is a modern fable written that makes it different than the other two?
It's written now.
Close.
Today.
There you go, your scientific terminology. It uses today-y type things. And then we got to the thing, let's see, Lizzie Lexi, the thing that makes it's weird, every time, it's just to help you out. It's almost like you know the answer, right? Which is?
Wait, what did you say?
I haven't said anything yet. You know the answer's going to be alright?
I do.
What? I don't know.
I know it's going to be.
Because I think I'm calling you for the same question every single time, so I thought it'd be...
No, you call me for the traditional one.
Do I? Dang,
Yeah.
I thought it was this one. Well, then, ooh, it'll be a surprise. Go you. The thing that every fable has to have that makes it not just a random story told by a creepy guy in the woods. What is the one thing that every fable is supposed to have?
A moral.
Nicely done. Good use of the crowd. A moral. And then from there, Locke, let's help Lizzie Lexi out. What is a moral? So we can try to help it stick in her brain.
A lesson learned.
It is a lesson learned. Like, Mr. Brovicast, should I use Snapchat to find answers on stuff? Nope. That would probably be a wonderful fable that we're going to get into about learning poor choices, especially letting teachers know who are going to taunt you nonstop. It would just be awful. And then we got into the characteristics of fables, the things that make a fable a fable. Willoughby, the most important one that every fable has to have that Lizzie Lexi will never forget because I'm going to keep picking on her forever and ever about it is?
Moral.
Nicely done, Willoughby. I didn't have to use the crowd or anything. Mr. Willoughby, you talk kids so much. It's good for you. Donahue. And then we got, Coons. I randomly picked on you for this one. We have to have a certain type of character in our fables for it to work well. And they're small and adorable and fuzzy. And what type of characters would we use? Or stars. Either one would work because they're kind of interchangeable. They're the same thing. And this went from there to Kate. Unlike me, when I tell my stories, how long should our fable be to have kids pay attention all the way to the end?
Short.
Nicely done. Should be a total of short. And then from there, neighbor. If we want our kids to enjoy our fables and not be scared or upset by them, what kind of tone should they have? You say conflict? Confident. No. Ironically, you were not confident when you said confident, which is teaching irony. And I'm very proud of you for bringing irony back in. But no, I like your confidence on that one. But we'll come back on that one. Dakota, before I come back and pick on neighbor again, what kind of tone should our fables have in order to keep kids so they're not crying and upset at the end? Ooh. You know what, neighbor?
Serious.
Nicely done. See, now I get to come back and pick on Dakota again. Humorous or funny or happy in some way. Dakota! And then we got to the fifth one, which was up there, which was the idea that, what age should we aim our fables at to keep people learning forever and ever? Look at that, Dakota, way to step in. Enjoyed by people of all ages. Marn! And then we got to the person that made fables the most famous of all. He was known as the father of fables. He has one name like Rihanna and Beyonce, and that is?
Aesop.
That Aesop fella, nicely done.
Aesop.
Peyton, or not Tom, roughly when was it that Aesop was alive?
600.
Like 600 something.
I also would have taken a
That's when he
long
died.
time ago. Or I'd also take during Mr. Brovicast's childhood. All of those will be answers that can work in one way or another. Yes, close to that at all. Manship.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing? Good morning. Then we discovered that what continent was Aesop originally from when he was running around listening to all the stories from the old people?
Far away.
Far away is good, and that would cover many continents. This particular continent, sounds like we should have a class that teaches these particular things. Here's your hint. It is north of Antarctica, south of Europe, and then east of South America, and west of Asia.
It's North America.
It's also South America, too.
Okay, South America.
No, because it would be east of South America. It's
Africa.
nicely done. I figured if I named enough different continents, you'd be like, there's only like 3 left. Way to play my game. He was originally, I forgot. He was originally from Africa, but then he moves and goes somewhere else, and that's where he. Wow, you guys are on top of that one. I'm so proud of you. Well, hang on. I have to make Goodwin feel like she gets participate. Goodwin, she then gets kidnapped, slave-napped, and taken to another country to go live. And what country does he go to? I don't
You
either.
just said it.
It does. Here's your hint. It begins with a G and rhymes with Reese's Pieces. I don't worry, we'll come back to you. I really felt I was pretty strong on that one. One of my favorite hints ever. Kulunga?
That was pretty good.
Grease! Nicely done. G, Reese's Pieces, Greasy.
Reese's Pieces.
It's in the bottom of a fryer.
Right
You
there.
could've
I was
said
thought
that.
about that too. And she's like, French fries? I was like, I don't know, it was like that. I was just trying to be helpful. I'm so good at what I do. Let's see. Then, he's so good it ends up with all of these stories that he ends up telling Joey. He manages to work his way up to tell stories to the most important person of all. And who's he end up telling stories for?
Emperor.
Stop stealing Joey's answer. He's going to throat punch you. What was that, Joey? Nicely done. It's like I could feel that answer just coming to you the entire time. He ends up telling stories to the emperor. Excuse me. Daughtery. Sorry. With all of these stories that he's telling, where do these stories come from? Who created all of these stories that he's telling? Does he create them himself?
No.
No.
Where does he get them from? Works for me. And he was a childhood and from other people, so he ends up stealing all of these other stories. And I forgot. Yeezy! He ended up being so good at telling stories, he gets the one thing that all slaves want, which is?
Freedom.
Nicely done. And we got to that part. And then we got to the part with, see, so Donahue, how is it that Aesop goes about this death thing?
He gets killed by people in a village that he throws gold in the water.
He
Throws
tried
gold in
teaching
the
me
water
a
and kills
lesson in the
people.
tumor part.
Most random, biggest story ever. But yes, he turns a lake into a wishing well, and people kill him. Like, we hate wishing wells! And they come after him, and they do the whole killing thing. And now he's dead. And then we get to oral tradition. And then, with oral tradition, tiny writing, this is why we still have all of his stories today. And what is oral tradition? How does it help us know what's going on now?
They've been passed on.
Nicely done. The stories, they get passed down from person to person over a period of time. And then we got to what hillbillies want from their dentists, which is
Motif.
nicely done, because then we get to the whole motif thing from there. Locke, what is a motif?
Lots of teeth.
It is lots of teeth. And yeah, you remember this is where we just left off yesterday, and we were talking about the fact we don't have a lot of time for exposition, so because of that we have to bring in these things called motifs, which was talking about characters.
Can I answer?
I don't know.
Very honest to you guys, I just thought we'd give it a try. Don't worry, I'll come back and pick on you again in just a moment. No, that'd be cheating. We're not gonna be cheating. We're not on Snapchat right now. That'd be really ridiculous. Kate?
Characters that are used over and over again.
Close enough for me.
I knew that.
So when you have, I know you did.
Close
She
enough
just
to
helped
come.
you out like that. You know how Kate is. Good job. And so it's gonna be that common character that pops up in multiple stories. Like Locke, if we could think of an example that help us out of a character that's the same thing that would pop up in multiple stories.
A fox is bad.
Works for me, because a fox oftentimes will be sneaky. We got to our first one yesterday, which is an owl. And anytime we have an owl in a story, what kind of character will be?
Why?
Nice.
Smart is smart.
Now you can open your notebook and we get a chance to get back to the learning bits after we've seen just how much knowledge is in you. For some of you, it's not much at all. I know, we were trying. This is about where we stopped with you guys. We started talking about the fact that we had the bully, the mean one, or the tough one, and we mentioned a couple animals, which were
Owl.
a bull,
A fox.
no,
Bear.
a bear,
Lion.
Cat.
and then so we have usually the bully, mean, tough. You have the bear's a big one, bull most definitely, and then if you can imagine that you were a small pig and you wanted to build your own house, there's a, there you go.
Why
That's
are
like a
they
cat.
different colored fonts?
Because you can tell from one line to the next. If not, they blend into one big ball of text. It just makes it easy.
Wolf,
Just me being
bull,
kind.
bear, cat.
Cat is a little bit tricky. Cat will sometimes be a good character, and a cat can sometimes be a bully character. It goes back and forth. It depends on the story.
Tom and Jerry.
If I were to say the fable of the cat and the mice, the cat's probably going to be.
The lion.
But if I say the story of the cat and the elephant, you're like, well, the cat's probably not going to bully the elephant because it's a cat. And so it just sort of depends from story to story. So that's why I put the cat at the end. It sort of varies from story to story. Owen.
It could be like a predatorial cat, like a puma or like a lion.
A house rat.
I want to meet a
No, it's a house
Sneaky, thief, or
That's-
tricky. There's a couple different ones we'll get to.
That's a
One,
bee.
if you are a small Hispanic girl who likes to carry a backpack with you, there is a certain one you have to worry about. Good. Sniper is not the name of an
He
animal.
said sniper.
A fox.
A fox. There's another one that has a built-in mask, which often gets accused of.
That's
The raccoon. Now, the other one I have kids throw out there is snake, but the problem is in Fables, snakes weren't considered this area because snakes don't get considered to be evil until Christianity, and the whole Adam and Eve thing in the Garden of Eden, and Christianity came 1,000 years after Fables, so snakes weren't really considered that. There is a type of creature which is like a snake, but furry with little legs.
Caterpillar.
Not exactly wrong. It's a thing called a weasel.
Oh,
So-
those things are annoying.
I have one.
Weasels pop up in quite a few fables, and they're almost always evil, the sneaky, the mean ones,
I
and
have
stuff like that.
weasels. Snakes.
Maybe you.
Why do you have a weasel?
Your description of
Talk
Dora
about
was
weasel.
looks great.
It helps, right?
Yes. And she
Why did
carries
you
a
put
monkey
Swiper
with her.
Now, because Swiper is not an animal.
Yes, it is.
No, that's his name.
That's his name.
Just I can't say, look, there's a whole group of Upshaws over there. No, you're a name. They're called people. I'll Snapchat it to you, that way you'll know.
No.
Those of you at home, if only you knew what was going on. We're helping a kid learn a lesson, slowly and painfully. Speaking of learning a lesson, good memory. There is an animal that gets thought of as having a good memory.
A moose.
Nicely done. An elephant.
An elephant.
Now, here's where part of our issue comes in with these. They're not true. An owl is not a smart critter. An elephant does not have a good memory. Not every bear is mean. These, as a kid pointed out to me yesterday, are what we call stereotypes. It's pretty much the exact same thing. These motifs are just a stereotype,
So would it
but
be
they're ones that have
species?
been around for a while. Leisure?
When I was watching Zootopia, the elephant wasn't smart at all.
No. So a lot of times cartoons will sometimes tap into these, but it's not always. If we're gonna have a rabbit or a cheetah, what kind of-
Fast.
Nice one. It's probably gonna be your fast or your quick one in some way. Good job. Now, of course, speaking of learning lessons, I wish I had a person Snapchat, because I would snap them a picture of the left-hand side of the notebook and a right-hand side of the notebook, because everyone knows which side of your notebook, which you write down all the homework notes, you always go on the left-hand side. Once again, if someone sends you a message about it, it helps you out.
We're learning
It's
a
all right.
lesson about cheating.
Love my helping of you? You're welcome. Here's why I'm here. No.
A turtle. Okay, I did it.
Turtle shows up quite a bit for being the slow one. Those of you who have, I believe it was, what was the movie? Zootopia? It's Zootopia. Sloth pops
Turtle.
up quite a bit. Turtle we mentioned. And then we're also going to have snails will pop up. Even though it's not technically an animal, it does pop up quite a bit as a little slow thing.
What about that one movie where it's like, what's it called? Snails that are like super fast.
Oh,
Oh, my brother used to watch that all the time.
I've never seen that.
Now, before you get in trouble yelling out anyone's name, for the one that says dumb, there's a farm animal, which often gets connected to this.
Donkey.
That's actually
A
stubborn.
cow.
And the cow is
That was,
correct.
oh, yeah. that's
Because it
right.
was thought that they're not very smart and they're
They
easy to
are.
push over, and so cows are often connected to the dumb area.
Our-
Donkeys are thought to be stubborn. Anytime you have a stubborn character, it'll be the donkey.
Pig.
Messy.
Nicely done. Apparently, many of you have had parents say something about your room.
No.
No,
My room's cleaner than my mom's.
Wow.
She
Yeah,
can
usually
try.
the messy slob character is going to end up being the pig. In
My
that
room is cleaner than my mom's.
It actually is. I make up my bed every day and she does it. So she can try.
For the hungry and eats everything,
That's
another farm animal. I understand a lot of you guys.
A goat.
Teenage boy.
It's a goat.
So, but
Pig.
you're correct.
Smart.
It's a goat.
Goats.
Oh, it's not a nerd, it's a goat.
Goats are often known to eat almost anything you put in front of them.
So
They
Like,
can eat
Yeah.
known to eat tin cans
Yep.
even.
To bite your
Yeah.
hand off.
I've been bitten.
Our neighbor had a
I
guy
got-
one
I got
time.
my
He
shirt back in.
got his head stuck in the fence. It was
Shy and quiet is
Not
any number of animals that don't really make noise. Oftentimes mice will be thrown into this one. I've seen deer put in there because deer don't really make a noise. Sometimes giraffes show up into it.
Cheetah.
Although usually you're going to have, anytime you want to have a tall character, that's where the giraffe plays more of a role. And this is also where I've seen kittens. So even though the cat will usually be more of the mean one, the kitten is often more of the shy or quiet one. And so we usually just use the baby version of it, use a kitten instead of a cat.
What about a dolphin?
What's up, Snaps?
Okay, so I'm scared of cats, but I like kittens.
That's
How are you
fascinating.
scared
weird.
of cats?
Cats are irritating.
Kittens are adorable because they join
And the last one is the talkative or outgoing.
The owen.
You know, here.
One of them
Here.
is a type of bird, which is known for speaking.
Woodpecker.
A mockingbird.
A parrot.
Parrot.
Parrot, well done. And the other one is a small dog, which is all,
A
yeah,
yippee dog.
Chihuahua.
the Chihuahua is correct.
Chihuahua.
Chihuahua.
What is
So
that?
the
Can you say
parrot
the actual name?
and the Chihuahua are the last ones.
Do you not know what a chihuahua is?
Oh, I didn't know that.
They're the small yippy ones. They're known
The
for
top
like
one
the
is
top of
the
the
one, the
Tails.
person.
Yeah, that's a chihuahua.
No, I think the mockingbird.
The dog
the
person.
person.
shreds donkeys.
They're also stubborn. Once you have that, you're going to turn back to your table of contents. Why do you think? Because I have no idea. We're just going to stare at it for a
Can I
while.
have a notebook? A new notebook for
Sure.
You can just
Like
buy
5
it in
points.
this book.
You can get one from the bookstore for $1 or one from me for 5 points.
Or you could just go to Dollar Tree.
Is it nice?
I mean, I like it. Sandwich from there. Here's where you're going to go ahead and put this entry into the homeworky side. And this is going to be entry number 2, Fable homework. If you look confused because you have a whole bunch of homework entries right above this, probably because you're in the wrong table of contents. You should only have one entry above this, which would just be the Fable notes, and that would be it.
Yeah, I'm getting a new
What about
notebook.
Yeah,
Yeah, I need
It's a
say
little
that.
messed up.
I just ripped out the
Look at my notebook.
yeah, it's got issues.
I know.
Got
That's
issues.
why I got it. Mine's spiral, so it has issues. I need all
When
mine.
you write it in there, go to your next homework page.
I have no notes.
This is the directions you will find once again on my website, on the Fable part. There's going to be 3 options. You're going to have the questions options, you're going to have the doing the alphabet phrase option, and then you're going to have option 3, which will be taping in the quiz that you're going to take tomorrow if you do well enough on there. So you have those 3 options from there. Plus, there's going to be stories on there too that are going to show up on the quiz tomorrow. So you're going to have a couple different fables you'll have to take a look at on there. Kate?
What if you use 2 pages for the notes of like the whole thing?
That's fine.
Do you put the second one in the little copy?
Nope.
Oh, shoot.
Once you have your entry into there, you can clear your notebook off. You are good to go. Once you have the due date, you have all that. Now, we're going to hook you up, and we're going to take a look at a couple of fables and try to figure out what types they are.
Yeah, all
They
favorite.
have animals.
That is correct. And how long are they?
Short.
Very
Who are
long.
they aimed at?
Aimed at everyone.
Aliens.
But who wrote most of them?
Aesop.
Aliens.
No, Aesop's family.
There you go.
In
You didn't actually write anything.
He's the. Oh my
Ah.
god.
Oh my
I love
god!
that. Is that the picture for tomorrow?
There's a picture of a random puppy dog.
You should-
Doesn't like
That's
puppies.
Mr. Brovicast, you should Photoshop a small picture of yourself and put it on
I
the
think I have a picture.
So the first one we're going to take a look at is one called The Lion and the Mouse.
That's not short.
I have taken off the very end, because the very end of it is always going to be the most important thing that every fable has to have. Yes, Lizzie? What is it that every fable has to have?
Moral.
Nicely done. It's like it's right there. So there's moral is at the very end. That's the last thing, but I don't have the moral up there. So when we read it, my question to you will be a couple things. One, what type of fable is it? Because what are our three types?
Traditional.
Nice job. Now, just looking at it before we've even read it, there's one of them you automatically know it's not.
Modern.
A modern.
No, it's
Verse.
traditional.
Why would you say verse?
Because it's not a poem.
Yeah. You can look up there and go, that's not a poem. So then you can go ahead and take verse and go, phew, throw it out.
I think
Which leaves you two options, which are,
Modern.
and now if it's modern, what's it going to have in it?
Today.
Nicely done. If it's traditional, then it's
Old time.
old time.
traditional.
There
It
you
says
go.
once when a lion,
Yeah,
so.
I thought it was.
Well, you can just say, once there was a small lion who went to Forest Junior High. Look at that. It could be modern either way. So the lion and the mouse. Once when a lion was asleep, a little mouse began running up and down on him. Side note, stupid mouse. This soon woke the lion, who placed his huge paw on top of him and opened his big jaws to swallow him. "Pardon, O king of the jungle," cried the little mouse. "Forgive me this time. I shall never forget it. Who knows, but I may be able to do you a favor one of these days." The lion was so amused at the idea of the mouse being able to help him that he lifted up his paw and let him go. Some weeks after this, the lion was caught in a trap, and the hunters, who desired to carry him alive to the king, tied him to a tree while they went in search of a wagon in which to carry him. Just then, the little mouse happened to pass by, and seeing the sad condition in which the lion was caught and tied, went up to him and soon gnawed away the ropes that bound the king of the beasts. "Was I not right?" said the little mouse. Now, before we figure out what our moral is and what we're supposed to learn from it, we're going to see traditional or modern. Show of hands. Have you say traditional? Have you say modern?
I've heard this too.
Nicely done. So this is most definitely traditional, even though we have that, Mr. Brovicast, they have traps in there. Yes, they've had traps for at least 4 or 5 years now. And then our moral at the end. So my question is, what is it we're supposed to learn from this? What is our moral that either the mouse or the lion and realize there can be more than one moral that we get from it. Is it you should never steal homework from Snapchat? No, that'd be much more of a modern fable, but I like where you're going with it. Willoughby?
Little people can help too.
Ooh, how so? Explain.
Because he was able to shoot through the ribs and see big strong lions, small weak mouse.
I can see that. Little people can be helpful too. Maya?
Don't judge a person by how they look.
Ooh, how so?
Because the lion thought that the mouse couldn't help because he was really tiny.
Not bad. You guys are focused on the little people thing. Let's go with, hey, there's probably a reason. It's not a person's size that counts. Go, you guys. Our next one, the tortoise and the hare. Before we even get a chance to read it,
Traditional.
what are the three types? Versus modern. Just looking at it will be your guess. Why do you say, wait, let's see. By show of hands, who says traditional? Who says verse? Who says modern? Why do you say verse?
Oh, I know.
Because it looks like a poem.
Because it looks like verses.
Let's find out. So there was a hare just hopping by. Right then a tortoise caught his eye. He said, "Hi, tortoise, how are you? I bet I'm faster than you." By the way, this was written by a past student. It just made me smile, so that's why I stole it. The tortoise said, "Oh, no contraire, I'm much faster than a hare." The hare said, "Fine, we'll take a test. I'll show you I'm the very best." They stood behind the starting line, while the hare thought, "This race is mine." Bang! That was the gun, now go. The hare took off and stubbed his toe. Oh well, who cares? He is too fast. He knew the tortoise would be last. He tripped and skipped along the track, but he could not stop looking back. The tortoise was not anywhere. He was too slow for the hare. As he finished, he could see something standing by the tree. It was the tortoise. He had won. The tortoise said that race was fun. Then he laughed in the hare's face. The last line is going to be the moral, which is?
Slow and steady wins the race.
Well, look at Lizzie taking the lead. I know what morals are now, Mr. Brovicast. Slow and steady wins the race. And what type of fable was it?
Traditional. No,
Verse.
Sorry.
Traditional.
Why? How's it written?
It's a traditional.
A poem.
Nicely done, as a poem. This one called The Bad Kangaroo.
Oh my.
Oh, I've never from
Alright.
Australia.
That's So we have, there was a small kangaroo who was bad in school. He put thumbtacks on the teacher's chair. He threw spitballs across the classroom. He set off firecrackers in the lavatory, that's a fancy word for bathroom, and spread glue on the doorknobs. "Your behavior is impossible," said the school principal. "I'm going to see your parents. I will tell them what a problem you are." The principal went to visit Mr. and Mrs. Kangaroo. He sat down in a living room chair. "Ouch! There's a thumbtack in this chair." "Yeah, I know," said Mr. Kangaroo. "I enjoy putting thumbtacks in chairs." There was suddenly a loud noise from down the hallway. "Forgive me," said Mrs. Kangaroo to the principal. "The firecrackers that we keep in the medicine chest have just exploded. We love the noise." The principal rushed for the front door. In an instant, he was stuck to the doorknob. "Pull hard," said Mr. Kangaroo. "There are little globs of glue on all of our doorknobs." The principal pulled himself free, dashed out of the house, and ran off down the street. "Such a nice person," said Mr. Kangaroo. "I wonder why he left so quickly." "No doubt he had another appointment," said Mrs. Kangaroo. "Never mind, supper's ready." Mr. and Mrs. Kangaroo and their son enjoyed their evening meal. After dessert, they all threw spitballs at each other across the dining room table.
This family sounds so weird.
So before we get to our moral, we have our three types. So between traditional, verse, and modern, raise your hand if you say traditional, verse, modern.
Modern.
Why do you say modern?
Today stuff.
Today stuff. And what would be our moral from this? What is the thing we're supposed to learn? Daughtery? Good start. I like where you went with that one. Win?
Don't always listen to your parents.
Why?
Because they're not always right.
So always listen to your
I
parents.
said don't.
Oh, I thought you said, oh. So don't always listen to your parents because they're not always right. Not bad. I can see that. Subvert authority. Locke?
A lot of kids act like how they do at school, like their parents at home.
How so?
Because like they don't, because like a lot of parents don't really like teach their stuff any kids. Like that's why we do Dare a lot too.
No.
Because they don't talk about their that stuff like drugs to their kids like before it's too late.
I can see that. Kunsei?
You mimic the choices of your guardians.
Ooh, how so? Like, how's it connect to the story?
Like, it's the kid, and he's mimicking what his parents do.
Nicely done. Pretty much, a child's actions shall reflect that of their parents. Then if you see a kid with issues, there's probably a pretty close idea of where those issues come from. So here, that little kangaroo got in trouble for things that he didn't know were wrong because that's what his parents do all the time.
Kind of answers?
Another, actually, I'm going to skip this one as much as I like boy trouble. I'm going to show you another one. The Ant and the Grasshopper. With this one, it's a really short one, but I just wanted to show you something with it real quick. So on this one, as you go through, it's like the ants were spinning a fine, which was a drying grain they had collected in the summertime. Fairly short, gets to the end, and our thing is plan ahead or use your time wisely. Well, we talked about oral tradition. What's the problem with oral tradition? What happens to them?
Like, things change over time. It can be said differently or told differently.
I have the exact same fable I found, but it was a completely different version of the ant and the grasshopper with a much longer explanation that it went into with everything. And it still comes out with there is a time for work and a time for play, don't procrastinate. The previous one was the idea of plan ahead or use your time wisely. As we get into them, I just wanted to show you that the fact that we can have the exact same story and have multiple versions of the exact same one. Then, the one we'll take a look at called
Great bunch of juicy grapes.
Tomorrow, we have something due for some of you. Because what do some of you owe me? A book. Otherwise, we have a